actually served during the Iraq War, Jeremy Butler, CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and Andrew Exum, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Middle East Policy and a contributing editor at The Atlantic. Jeremy, you're here in studio. I'll start with you first. What is your reaction to seeing those sorts of accusations being lobbed?
Yeah, I think two big reactions. It's frustration and it's deja vu. And I think I speak on behalf of all of our membership at IAVA. We continue to, as a country, kind of ignore the bigger picture about what we're doing in the Middle East until we have these issues that bring them to the forefront. They're there for a little bit, and then they fade away again. And we as a country don't really talk about what we're doing there, what our intentions are, why are we sending military members there, why have they been there for so many years, and what's our end state? What's our goal? What's our strategy?
And naturally, Andrew, that's exactly the kind of conversation that I saw in many ways shut down in the run-up to the Iraq War, particularly with this kind of rhetoric, right? That like you're pro-Saddam, you hate the troops, you hate America, you are disloyal and unpatriotic, and it's striking to see it again. Although it does seem to me like the situation has changed in the context politically.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think there are two differences. And, of course, I was just an Army officer during the debate in the run-up to the Iraq War. I served in Iraq in 2003. But I think one of the differences that you see now, and you saw it with Mickey Sherrill on just earlier, is that you now have a lot of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that are now serving in the Congress and are part of this debate. You know, I respect Representative Sherrill's position on this issue. A lot of veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars are quite hawkish on this issue, but some are not, and some, like Alyssa Slotkin, who sponsored the resolution today. You know, she herself served in Iraq 3 times. Her husband was a squadron commander in Iraq, and you know, you see somebody like that who also has deep experience that's pumping the brakes somewhat and saying, well, this requires a little more debate than we had leading up to the 2003 invasion of Iraq, and that we should at least debate what's the proper role for the Congress here. You
know, you mentioned, Andrew, that hawkishness. I read a great op-ed by Phil Clay, who's a fantastic writer, veteran today, talking about sort of his mixed feelings, his sort of opposition to escalation, but also the fact that there are a lot of folks that served in Iraq, particularly during the period of insurgency in 2006, 2007, peak violence, when, you know, there were these EFP devices that were being deployed and sent out and killing American soldiers, people that lost loved ones and friends and comrades and people in their unit to those devices that ultimately intelligence suggests traces back to Soleimani. And I wonder how you think about that, just from almost a first-person perspective.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Look, not a lot of good has come out of either the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but Phil Clay's voice, Phil Clay's writing is one of those things. I think you're absolutely right. A lot of veterans who remember the war in Iraq, who remember the way in which the Iranians sponsored militias on the ground, the way in which EFPs killed and maimed so many U.S. soldiers. And even if they have great wariness about this next phase in the conflict, they're not mourning the departure of Qasem Soleimani from this earth. So I think it's with a lot of those same mixed feelings that soldiers see this. There's a degree of mourning that I think is taking place. You see veterans who can't believe that we're still there after 2 decades, but on the other hand, they're not shedding any tears for Qasem Soleimani.
Yeah, they can't believe they're not there. I mean, one of the points that Phil Clay made earlier today is just talking about I was there with, I think, the first time we took Fallujah, not the second or the third. The idea of just this sort of eternal recurrence. Mm-hmm. And what's so crazy to me is just to watch the sort of celebratory nature after, like, a, quote, bad guy is taken out or a victory is achieved, when we have just walked through so many of those moments from mission accomplished on.
Exactly. And that's what Chris trying to get at, sorry, with the deja vu, sorry, stepping on Andrew there. That's exactly kind of what it is. We continue to find ourselves in these situations where we're talking about what really are tactical victories, if you will, or tactical situations, and not tying that to the bigger picture. And to Andrew's point, you know, there are a variety of veterans. You know, we're not a monolithic group. We have a lot of different opinions on this. Some people are celebrating what happened. Other people's, as Andrew said, no one is sad about Qasemi's death, but the debate needs to be about something higher than that, and that's what they're trying to get at, is what do we do now? Why are we there? Let's not easily walk into another situation where we're going to get mired.
Andrew.
Yeah, no, I had this terrible moment in December of 2015 when I was serving in the Pentagon as the senior Middle East guy there, and the Iraqi forces were retaking the city of Ramadi at the time, and I was looking at a map, and my intelligence briefer was showing me these places, and I was like, yeah, I got it. I know exactly where that is. I spent quite a lot of time there in 2003, 2004, and I remember looking at that and thinking with some despair, goodness gracious. This was, that was 15 years ago, and we're still there. And I think that there's, you see that same despair and frustration, but ultimately, what you also see is that, quite frankly, aside from the veterans and aside from the families of the fallen, the families who've watched their sons and daughters go off to war, these conflicts have not been borne by a large portion of the American population. Right. And I think you see that. I think the last time we really had an election in which national security was a real issue was probably 2006, when there was frustration over the Iraq War. We haven't seen that since, and our politicians haven't really been held accountable for the way in which the wars have been conducted.
Just final question to you, Jeremy, about the sort of nature of American political discourse on this question, when, the sort of conflation increasingly of domestic political opponents, the other party with literal foreign enemies upon whom violence is being visited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a confusing thing, and that's where, again, to what Andrew was talking about, it's good that we have more members of the veteran community that are in Congress, because they understand this and they can bring to these debates that understanding of what it means and what is important in these discussions.
Andrew, final thought on that.
No, I think that's exactly right. I think that that you're going to see a more informed debate, but ultimately it has to go beyond elites. What we've seen unfortunately within some demagogues is that we've seen a lot of this charged language that gives permission for others to have views of the domestic political opponents that are unhelpful in a democracy, to say the least. Those same representatives don't say that to my face when I'm briefing them on Capitol Hill. That's not the way they treat you in person. But that type of language is especially unfortunate, because I think it turbocharges the debate in a way that, frankly, is unnecessary.
All right, Jeremy Butler, Andrew Exum, thank you, gentlemen, both.
Thank you.
Still to come, President Trump announces massive environmental rollbacks, a move the former head of the EPA calls dangerous, and she will explain why ahead. Plus, tonight's Thing 1, Thing 2.